The girl was on the side of her bed with her phone pressed to her ear, whispering so softly that it took Black a moment to hear her. The weight of her secret had been crushing her for months, and she could bear it no more. "Danny, I don't know what's happening," she confessed, her voice quivering with a mixture of panic and relief. "I have ruined things so much." On the other line was her younger sister Danny, who never stopped listening, concern rolling through the lines, even unbeknown to Danny herself. "Malkova, take a deep breath. What's going on? You sound like you are about to cry." Malkova stopped, and her heartbeat drummed against her ribs. She glanced up at the slightly open bedroom door to see that Derek wasn't there. "I have a boyfriend now," she murmured, the words leaving a bitter taste in her mouth. "His name is Nelson. We are colleagues, and it happened. It's been building for 6 months, and I don't know if I want to keep living this lie. I still love Derek, but—" She couldn't keep going. She was overwhelmed with guilt, suddenly awash in it. Nelson was attentive, charming, and made her feel desirable, something she hadn't felt from her husband in years. Late nights at the office had turned into stolen moments, texts so private, so dangerous, they were thrill and terror both at once to her. But now, the thing had snowballed or whatever, and she was stuck in the middle, between the man she loved and the thrill of something new. Derek was on the couch in the adjoining room, occasionally glancing at his phone and half listening to Malkova talk. They were just noise in the background, her hum noise. But then she had drawn a line. "I've been seeing someone else." His fingers hovered and stilled, and his gut twisted. He reached for more. His breath lodged in his throat as the world tilted out from under him. "I'm still in love with Derek," Malkova said, her voice quaking. "But I have no idea how. I cannot go back to not the way things were. Nelson makes me feel alive." Derek's entire world broke in that second. The phone slipped from his hand, clanging against the glass coffee table. He felt a punch to the gut, as if someone had just knocked the wind out of him. How could this be happening? Malkova, the woman he'd made a life with, the woman he'd sworn to love till death do us part. How could she do this to him? His head was full of lurid images of her, with another man laughing with one another, touching one another, enjoying each other in ways meant only for them. He rose silently, located his keys and wallet, slipped on his shoes. He struggled for the boat, mechanically, for that hurt which was strangling him. He heard the front door click closed behind him, the sound that would torment Malkova for weeks. Malkova disconnected from Danny, her head a jumble of emotions. But the confession had given her only the briefest feeling of release, quickly replaced by fear. What if Derek found out? What if she lost everything? She crept into the living room, half expecting him to be there watching TV or reading, but the living room was empty. On the coffee table sat his phone, a black rectangle. "Derek! Who are you?" she shouted, her voice echoing through the empty house. No response. So she searched in the kitchen and then the backyard and then the garage, and he was not there. Panic began to tighten around her, clawing at her chest. Then she called his phone, but it was ringing in the living room. He had to have dropped it in his haste. She texted, "Where are you? We need to talk." No reply. Another, "At least let me know you're okay." Still nothing. Was it a good hour that passed for an age? Malkova called Derek's mom and asked through chattering teeth if he was inside. "No, sweetie, I sure haven't heard from him," his mother said, worry tinging her voice. She called his best friend, Mike, and his co-worker, Paulina, but neither had heard from him. The disbelief was like a sore in her, teeming with the greater guilt she'd felt since she had confessed. Everywhere she went, in case an image of Derek had popped in some remote part of town. She visited the gym where he had sweated, the park where they had strolled hand in hand, the diner where they had late-night grease-saturated conversations. But he had vanished. The city felt big and empty, a sensation she was beginning to develop. At home, she walked back and forth in the living room, brushing against Derek's things. His favorite sneakers by the door, his toothbrush in the bathroom, his coffee mug on the counter. They were a proof that he hadn't gotten anywhere, weren't they? He hadn't just vanished from their life as one another. Could he? By morning, Malkova was a hurricane. She had slept not at all, her eyes red from crying, puffy. Her mind was a war zone of panic and guilt, every thought more tormenting than the one before it. Had Derek heard her? Was that why he left? Or was there something else at work here? She had some questions, but first she needed to find him. Frustrated and desperate, she logged into their joint account in search of clues. She saw it then, a charge from the Comfort Inn, yesterday in the afternoon. Her heart raced. Derek was at a hotel? Why hadn't he come home? What level of rage was he truly experiencing to distance himself so completely from her? Or was he preparing to pack up and leave for good? And worse, if so, would there even be an America to return to? She grabbed her keys and drove to the Comfort Inn, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. She'd made her way up to the front desk and pleaded with the receptionist, a young woman who smiled sympathetically but was clear-eyed. "Excuse me, I'm looking for my husband, Derek Thompson. Is he here?" "Imp, ma'am," the receptionist said, "all business. We don't disclose guest information due to privacy practices." It was the last straw in Malkova's mind. "He's my husband. I'm worried about him." "Can't you just tell me if there's a way to find out if he's okay?" The receptionist, shaking her head, declined. Malkova collapsed in a chair, moaning in the lobby, and stared at the people who walked in. She sat there for hours, waiting for Derek to emerge, which he never did. The uncertainty was torture, a constant echo of the secret she bore and what damage it could have inflicted. And when she got home, Malkova called the hotel back, her voice pleading. "Just let me know if he's okay. I'm his wife," she protested, to no avail. Privacy policies forbid any confirmation. The $129.99 charge from the Comfort Inn stared back at her from the bank statement on her laptop as if it were an accusation. She tapped out another text to Derek's phone. "You are at the Comfort Inn. I know that. We need to talk. This isn't fair." Her thumb hovered over send, but she deleted it, not sure if she had any right to ask him for anything. After all, she was the one who had betrayed him. The guilt was like a weight, a heavy block that sat on her chest and made it hard to breathe. She had been trying to keep her hands and head filled, cleaning the kitchen, straightening the closet, anything to keep from spiraling into the void. But everywhere she looked inside the house was a stinging reminder of Derek, their wedding photo on the mantel, the blanket they'd snuggled under for movie nights, the coffee maker he'd given her for her birthday. Each was a portent of what she had to lose. Late the next evening, Malkova heard the front door open. Derek walked in, and her heart leapt into her throat as he passed her over to the counter with a tired and distant expression on his face. He dropped his keys on the counter with a ponderous slowness, like he was steadying himself for what was to come. "We need to talk," he added in that type of firm but quiet voice that cuts through the silence like a knife. Malkova's stomach churned. 100 times she had practiced this moment in her mind, and now that it had arrived, she was at a loss. "Derek, I'm so sorry," she blurted, tears forming in her eyes. I didn't mean for all this to go down." He held up a hand and stopped her. "Your talk with Danny, I saw that. I know about Nelson." Her words hit her like a slap. He knew, of course he knew. She had been so thoughtless, so selfish. "I wasn't supposed to," she said, her voice crackling. "I was so lonely, and Nelson, he made me feel like I was wanted again. But I regret it. I love you, Derek. I want to fix this." Derek's eyes showed his pain, but there was also something hard, something set that she hadn't seen before. A mistake? He said again, with a hint of bitterness in his voice this time. You keel-hauled our marriage over a mistake. You don't know how painful it was to hear you tell me that you love someone else. Malkova whimpered, her head in her hands. I don't love him like I love you. It was stupid, and I'm sorry. Please, please, just let me fix this. SET, Derek said, and he ran a hand through his hair. I don't know if we can. But if you're serious about making a go of this, you're going to have to break up with him. Completely. No contact. Let's take a pause, and we need to go see a therapist. As she wept, Malkova nodded vigorously in agreement. Yes, anything. I'll do whatever it takes. Derek slowly and carefully rose to his feet. Who knows how long I'm going to be in the hotel? I need space to think. The days after that, I spanked myself with pain and regret. Malkova quickly dumped Nelson, sending a short sentence in an email to him about it. She sought to avoid him at work, making her heart race every time she passed his office. But despite her best efforts to mend fences, the chasm between her and Derek grew. And so Derek packed up his things and left, taking only what he could put in a suitcase: some clothes, his laptop, a few books. They seldom talked, only brief text messages when he came by to pick up another armload of his possessions. Whenever Malkova came by, it stabbed a dagger of memory into her heart, of the life they had once had. She threw herself into work, contriving reasons to be among the last to leave the office, dreading the silence of their empty house. She'd go out with her friends, and she'd put a smile on her face and force a laugh, but guilt felt like a shadow, trailing her by the heel. She couldn't escape the truth. She had betrayed the man she loved, and now she was paying for it. The weeks passed, each one heavier than the previous. Malkova contacted Derek with okay proposal, doctor, change, that he responded politely and dispassionately. I need time, he'd text back, and she'd stare at the words, wishing they meant something more than they did. One evening, as she was leaving work, she looked across the street and saw Derek. He had a woman with him, a woman she didn't recognize. They were laughing, their heads ducked close to each other, a kind of familiarity in their space that made Malkova's chest tight. She halted, her breath as suddenly stilled in her throat. Who was she? Had Derek already found someone else? What she really wanted to do was be in their faces, screaming and demanding answers. But she held off. She had no right. Not anymore. Her eyes stinging, she whirled around and drove back to her apartment in silence. A month later, Derek comes to retrieve the rest of his supplies. The change was obvious to Malkova right away. More confidence and less slouch, brighter eyes. He was thinner than his fighting weight, and it cut through her. As he was packing up his belongings, she couldn't take it anymore. Who is she? She whispered softly. Derek stopped walking and gave her a stunned, pitying look. Her name is Paulina. We met at the gym. We're seeing each other. The words landed like a sack of bricks on Malkova. So that's it? You're just moving on? Derek's expression hardened. Malkova, you disappointed us. I gave you a trial, but I sort of realized I can't go back to that. I deserve to be happy, and so do you. Not together. He seized a box of his belongings and headed to the door. Tears welled up in Malkova's eyes as the man departed. She wished she could scream at him to stay, or even beg, but words did not come. The doors closed behind him, and the silence was heavy. In the weeks that followed, Malkova drifted in a haze of regret. The house was a tomb, and it was soaked in everything Derek. One last time, by accident, at a downtown coffee shop, she saw him. He sat with Paulina, laughing as he hadn't with her in years. They were over there, happy and carefree, and something inside her broke. She was over there, helpless and looking across the street with a heavy heart filled with her sins. Then she knew what she had done. It hit her. What he resented was the fact that it never should have been him. That it was her affair, snarky, belittling words, her face mirror blind spot where Derek was concerned that had ruined them. Now he was building a new life without her. Malkova turned away and wept. She had hoped that by coming clean and trying to atone, she could save their marriage. But there are always reactions to some actions that can't be taken back. The weight of that truth was heavy and final upon her as she walked back to her car.